So, the Russia hoax proves more than ever that we need to finish exactly what we came here to do. Drain the swamp.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to look at the latest new Q posts, and they tell an incredible story, but then we're going to look at something even more fascinating. The transcript from George Papadopoulos' closed-door testimony has been released, and there's a fascinating story in there that may tell us a whole lot more about his involvement with this whole Russia collusion hoax and how it ties directly back to Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and President Trump. You guys are going to stick around to hear this. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. I always like to start by saying thank you to everyone who's come here and hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications to be notified when these videos get posted, and hit the like button, which is the little thumbs up at the bottom of this video if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. So I apologize. We did this video earlier. We're going to pick up at Q post 3248, and we're going to do a few posts, and then we're going to skip a few. It's kind of going to be all over the place because here's what happened. I made this video earlier this afternoon, and just basically what happened was the Q posts weren't updated correctly on the website, and I missed a few posts, so we're going to cover those posts. It wasn't really anything that was truly groundbreaking because I think we covered it all through the context of the other Q posts that we were able to look at, so it's not like we really missed anything that important, but at the same time, I always like to be thorough and make sure we get each and every one, so that's why we're going to go back and do it. As I always say, if you guys want to get caught up on the latest Q posts, you're going to definitely want to jump back and watch this video, but then you can go back and watch as many as you want, and don't forget to come here and watch this video if you're scratching your head going, what is QAnon, and what is this guy talking about? I always encourage everyone to come watch that. That gets you caught up to everything that we have been, everything that QAnon is up till now. It gives you a good idea of where to get started with it. So today, we're going to start right here at Q post 3248. Basically what happened was we went up to this Q post 3247. These Q posts never came in, and then we picked back up here at 3254. So we're going to basically do these 6 posts, and then we're going to cover, like, there's 20 or 30 posts after, but they're all Q basically giving shout outs to people who were at the rally tonight, which if you guys didn't know, President Trump had a rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and that was you saw a clip from that at the beginning of this video, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. So let's get right into it. First of all, we have this post. So this was, we finished and we did this post, which talked about this older post from Q right here, which was from August of 2018, where everything was laid out for us, and that's kind of what I went through. It talks about the involvement of the White House from the Hussein administration, the clowns in action, the Department of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and certain members of Congress working with the fake news media to manufacture this whole Russia collusion hoax. Q lays it out very clearly right here. If you can understand what's being said in this post, then you basically understand the whole FISA-gate abuse, you understand the whole Russia collusion thing, you understand who was involved, what they were doing, and all of that. So I'm not going to go over this again, although if you look at it, you can see it just gives you different agencies, who was involved, who was giving orders to who, how it all worked, where the information was going, where it was coming from. That is the kind of thing that you can glean off of that if you want. And of course, it went with this Paul Sperry tweet, which was basically talking about how McCain had coordinated with James Clapper on the rollout of the dossier-based ICA and the ICA briefings to Obama. I think it's intelligence community or intelligence collecting agencies briefings to Obama, Trump, and Congress in January 2017 ahead of the Trump inauguration. So what does this story really mean? The story is really basically saying that everything Q's been telling us is very true. That they were working on this dossier and President Obama knew all about it, and they were working on it ahead of President Trump's inauguration, trying to get it ready for what is turned into this 2-year Russia collusion where they've been going after the president nonstop, and they used it to meddle in the 2018 election. And I will say on the record that they used this Russia collusion hoax to steal the 2018 election in the House. I'll throw that out there. And Q says focus here. No name media John Brennan, James Clapper leaks POTUS daily brief FBI. What does that make sense? How does that make sense? Well, think about it. No Name McCain, the senator who was leaking, who was pushing this unverified Steele dossier to all of these people like John Brennan and James Clapper, who were then encouraging their agencies to go and take this information and run with it. Not to mention the fact that you have Nellie Orr pushing it up through Fusion GPS into her husband's hands, which is Bruce Orr, who's working at the DOJ. So it's everyone's working together. So it seems like this information is coming from multiple different reliable sources, when in reality, it's all being pushed by the same people. And they're all in cahoots with one another. Right? So I believe we covered this post here. It just says, remember the important fact that Adam Schiff is part of the Gang of Eight intel. It'll become critical once Gang of Eight material is declassified. Logical question: if Adam Schiff knew everything he's investigating and stating publicly to be knowingly false disinformation, why then would he take the course of actions ongoing? Did Adam Schiff purposely deceive the American people, thinking the Gang of Eight material plus other classified documentation would never reach the public domain? What insurance did they hang over POTUS's head in order to prevent action? A father's love for his children knows no bounds. And as I said in the previous video, this is referring back to the fact that there were, according to Q, sealed indictments that were a part of the Mueller investigation that had absolutely nothing to do with collusion with Russia, but had to do with these process crimes. And they were going to try to get President Trump's children on these process crimes, saying, oh, well, you lied to the FBI. Well, when the fact is, it's like the claim they keep making. Oh, President Trump obstructed justice. Oh, well, he obstructed justice to prove that you guys had put together a hoax and were trying to target him for an illegal coup to unseat a duly elected president. Like I said, the perfect analogy is a cop is driving down the street. He gets a radio call. There's a bank robbery going on. He speeds across town, pulls up, kicks in the door, stops the bank robber, saves all the people inside, and then he gets a call from his superior officer saying, well, good job on the bank robbery stopping, but we're going to go ahead and have to write you up for crossing lanes or changing lanes without using a turn signal, running a red light. We're going to have to get you for an illegal double parking. And you're like, what? You're like, I was trying to save the people in the bank. So that's the kind of logic that we're up against here. It's obviously ironclad. The only way to regain the trust regarding equal justice under the law, regarding White House, regarding Intel, regarding FBI, regarding DOJ, regarding Senate, regarding Congress, regarding Five Eyes, regarding our government, of the majority of the Americans people, is to provide truth, transparency, and prosecution of all those who knowingly took part in this illegal manufactured effort, attempted coup to take down the President of the United States. One opens the door of the Great Awakening. Q says, follow the keyword designators, knowingly, knowingly, knowingly. Now this goes right back to this right here. So this is an actual full write-out of 18 U.S.C. Chapter 115 on, and this is a part of the U.S. Code on treason, sedition, and subversive activities. And if you look at 18 U.S.C. Chapter 115, Section 2385, it talks about advocating the overthrow of a government. Now, President Trump in his tweet said this: Congressman Adam Schiff, who spent 2 years knowingly and unlawfully lying and leaking, should be forced to resign from Congress. Well, let's go back here and read Section 2385, as we looked at in the last video. It says, whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States or the government of any state is guilty of advocating the overthrow of the government. And effectively, they can, here it says, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both. So he could be facing a very stiff fine and 20 years in jail for doing what he did and what he is continuing to do right now, knowingly spreading false information. So that's why Q wants us to focus on the knowingly. And we kind of covered this in the last episode. I'm just kind of reiterating it. Here's a funny meme we missed. It's all these sheep, and it says the left waiting for CNN to tell them what to be upset about next. It's hilarious. It's just like those memes that are going around the internet. There's a great channel called Me, Meme. So like M-E, M-E, and then meme, M-E, M-E. So it does these funny cartoons with the NPCs, and they're just hilarious. But it's the same principle. They can't think for themselves. They need Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper to get on the TV to tell them, you guys should be upset about insurance, healthcare. Don't worry about the fact we lied to you for 2 years about Russia and misled you. We should be really upset about insurance now. It's maddening. Anyway, the Anon points out here, I think this goes back to here. It says the server went down, Q. And Q says, what does that tell you about the size of this movement? And yeah, it's like a DDoS attack. When Q posts a link and everybody goes to it, you're basically DDoSing that site because you have like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people going directly to that site. And sometimes their servers can't handle that kind of traffic. So it's kind of funny that happens, and that tells you that this movement is huge. Or as Trump would say, it's huge. It's huge. All right, so the next one here is this graphic, and it basically is this. It's what we just looked at, this chapter 115, 18 U.S. Code, where it talks about treason, sedition, and subversive activities. We looked through it. We found the subsection, or the section here, 2385, that's talking about advocating the overthrow of government. And of course, in the last video, we basically got this post. So we talked about how it was knowingly and how it's advocating the overthrow of the government, so on and so forth. So there you go. We covered these ones. I'm not going to cover these again. So yeah, I'm just kind of going to go through those. This is where we basically, this was the last one we did, so this will be where we pick up. And it's actually kind of interesting. It's this video, and I don't want to play it because I don't want to get like copyright strike for the music or whatever. But I can tell you right now, it's like a techno song, kind of like a whatever, electronic, I don't know. I listen to Christian rock, so excuse me if I don't know what all the different genres of music are. But this one's like techno, pop, electronic, I don't know. You guys let me know. I'll leave a link to it. It's actually a pretty catchy tune, and it actually tells a story, which I think is even more fascinating. If you guys actually watch this full music video, it tells a story about President Trump, and I think it's really thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed it. So if you guys want to go check that out, I definitely encourage it. And now comes the next one, which is this Twitter post from John Solomon, where he's talking about this article that I guess he just put up, which talks about Republicans seeking formal investigation in Adam Schiff. If you go read the actual article, it talks about how Republicans on the Senate or the House Intelligence Committee are calling for an investigation into Adam Schiff. Why? Because he spent the last 2 years insinuating that he had some insider knowledge of the fact that President Trump and his family were guilty of every crime that had, basically guilty of being secret Russian sleeper cell agents that were waiting to destroy our country, or trying to destroy our country from within. So yeah, that might need a little investigating. We might need to go ask Adam Schiff, hey, what in the world were you thinking? Here's some great quotes coming from the individuals involved in this, and it talks about this senator or this representative Jody Hice from Georgia, who's basically putting this forward. And I think it was like unanimous on the Republican side of the committee where they called for this investigation. I think they all signed a letter calling for it. And here's a quote. It says, quote, I don't know all that he's done, but what I do know is that he's been on the forefront for 2 years claiming that he had evidence that the president colluded with Russia, quote, or unquote. He continued, quote, I believe thoroughly that was false. He was either misled or he was misleading, and we need to get to the bottom of it, unquote. I agree. I 100% agree with this. Of course, here is Schiff's response to all of this. Schiff says, my colleagues may think it is okay the president's son was offered dirt as part of an effort to help Trump. Schiff said, you might think it's okay, but I don't. And this goes back to the whole thing being a setup. Don't you understand? How did Veselnitskaya, the Russian attorney, who is at the middle of all of this, the Trump Tower meeting between Don Jr. and this Veselnitskaya woman, how did she get in the country? A special exemption from Loretta Lynch because I believe her visa was expired, so she was given special clearance to come in the country. So Obama's attorney general lets her in. The day before and the day after she had the meeting with President Donald Trump Jr., she had meetings with Glenn Simpson and people from Fusion GPS. So Adam Schiff, You're basically saying we need to investigate that Don Jr. had a meeting with a woman who was let into the country by Obama's AG and then was having meetings the day before and after the meeting with Don Jr. with Fusion GPS, the people who were setting up the president. You don't think that might have been a setup? I don't know. I wonder. And this goes right into what we're going to talk about here at the end about this George Papadopoulos thing. And I'm going to try to get into that because we're going to read some of that incredible testimony that he gave that tells a really, really incredible story. So the next, I don't know, about 30 posts are almost all about Q giving shouts out to people, saying like, people are like, hey, I'm at the rally, and Q's like, love of our country, flags out. There's a few ones that I thought were interesting that we should look at. Obviously, I'm not going to do each and every one of them because just for time reasons, I don't want to go through each and every one of these. But consider yourself, quite lucky and that you were called out, and congrats to all the patriots who got the shout out here from Q. And thank you for showing your pride and going to the rally and showing your support for this movement and showing support for this country as a whole. I appreciate it immensely. So, you kind of scroll through these, and here's a couple ones. I think I went a little too far back. They go through a few of these. I'm going to try to pick ones that I think were kind of unique or important. So here's one. This guy, John Cocktoson, can't say it. Sorry, can't say your name. It says, hey Q, why are you praising so many for tonight's rally with VIP treatment, yet during an Arizona rally I was harassed by Secret Service and had to remove my shirt, treated like I was carrying a bomb. So embarrassing. And then it's got the hashtag here, butthurt. Well, Q gives an actual explanation to that, which I think is fascinating. It says, pre-Mueller restrictions, pre-false call-ins regarding Q threats by them, they want you silenced, you are a threat to the narrative. That's Q just saying, basically, look, before all the Mueller stuff came out and everything, it was almost like they were trying to frame this movement to destroy it. So that's why they had to take all these precautions, which makes sense. So here's another one, a CNN status, where it talks about this Wells Fargo announcing the sudden retirement of the CEO, Tim Sloan, as the bank struggles to overcome a litany of scandals. And Q just says, list up to date, normal, Q. So the list of people resigning, that's the one we've been keeping for a while. So that one's very fascinating to look at as well. I'm trying to just pick out ones that are kind of unique. This one I thought was really touching. It actually, I really want to take a moment. Joanne Best. She writes, I wish you were here now, Dad. You were at Normandy on D-Day and made it back to live a life to be proud of. You always said it, real Donald Trump would make a great president. Wish you lived to see it, how he's changed the world. Love you, miss you. And I guess this is a picture of her father. So Q just says, rest in peace. And yeah, God bless your father. I thank God for his service. I thank him for his service. And I'm glad that you're carrying on his legacy and following through on what you believe is right. And this movement, obviously, we are here for you as well. So that one I thought was interesting. Q says, R.I.P. Patriot, your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Strength and honor, Q. So there's that one. And then here are the last two, but this one was the only one that was kind of interesting. So some of the Anons really freaked out because one of the people that was mentioned in here was this person Underculture. So I don't remember which exact post it was. But one of the Anons freaks out because he kind of circles the fact, like, look, this guy just joined on March 19th. So he just joined this month, and he made it in. And so what the Anons were basically saying was, they were like, red alert. They said they're only 1 month account. They were talking to the United States Secret Service saying that there's only 1 month old account. He made it in. He's giving updates as to his position in a sly way, letting his handlers know he's in. And Q just says, eyes on. So obviously, and it turned out to be nothing. The guy is totally harmless. He said he just got into the Q movement. He was just red-pilled like a month or two ago, and he just started following all this, which is good. We want to bring more people in, but we just want to be aware, and it's good. It's see something, say something. Always staying vigilant. That's what happened here, and obviously nothing came of it. So, God bless all of them, and God bless the guy who just got red pilled. And really, I think what people were most kind of freaked out about was when you looked at his actual post that Q gave us. He was wearing a hat that had like an Antifa pin on it, talking about punching Nazis. And I mean, that's like an obvious Antifa pin, but if he's new to the movement, he obviously had no idea that that was, because one of his other pins had a picture of Hillary with devil horns on her. And so I think it was just all a big misunderstanding. But like I say, it's always better to err on the side of caution. So now, before we wrap it up here, to get into what this episode I wanted to talk about briefly here at the end, it's this George Papadopoulos transcript. And I'm going to read this section out of it, and I'm going to let you guys kind of decide for yourself. But let me just give you the gist of what we're about to read. So George Papadopoulos was brought in as an advisor to the Trump campaign, and his expertise was Middle East and energy, the Middle East and energy. And he particularly was an expert in Israeli energy and business acquaintances, and you can imagine where those ties lead you. Now, this guy was approached by Alexander Downer, who was basically the equivalent to the head of the CIA in Australia. And you got to hear this story. It's incredible. This is just an excerpt. I'll leave a link to this if you guys want to read the whole thing. We're starting on page 30 here. And I'm starting with this question from Mark Meadows, who's asking questions to George Papadopoulos right now. It says, and for the record, this is the Australian diplomat, as it has been reported, at least the Australian diplomat, Mr. Downer, George Papadopoulos. Mr. Downer, that's right, who it's my understanding is probably the top diplomat in Australia, or was before he retired. He was the head of what I think is the equivalent of the CIA in Australia for around 17 years. I think that's what I read about him. Anyway, he's a very unknown person. This isn't counselor at the Australian embassy in London, okay? And this is Alexander Downer, or this is George Papadopoulos talking about how all of this came to be, how Alexander Downer ended up getting that information from him about the Russians getting Hillary's emails and all that stuff. So it says, so I'm told about this dirt on April 26th, but if I can, I'd like to explain the process leading up to the Downer meeting because I think it's very important. And Meadows says, sure. George goes on, because there is this misunderstanding. I was drunk in a bar with him randomly, which is complete. And Mark Meadows says, are you indicating that there are some things that were reported that are not accurate? And George says, that's a kind of way to say it. Okay, let's go back to April. I can't remember exact dates in April, but April, and maybe we can send emails and Wynn could corroborate certain things. I'm in talks with an Israeli diplomat named Christian Cantor, who was introduced to me through, I guess, a friend at the Israeli embassy in D.C. named Dor Shapiro, who was an economic counselor. And you have to remember, I was very connected to Israel and what was going on. So that was my network. So Dor introduces me to Christian because I tell Dor, look, I'm in London. I want to keep in touch with your government, just, to keep in touch, and see what's going on with U.S.-Israel relationship. And as a foreign policy advisor, it was my job to meet with diplomats and to really see what's happening and to relay it to the campaign. Of course, referring to the Trump campaign. So I started to notice that Christian was probing me a little too much about the inner workings of the campaign, why Trump was very interested in Russia, what his ideas of the Iran deal would be. I started to question whether he might have been recording something. That was my impression of this person. So somebody else chimes in and says, approximately when was this? George says, this would be, let's say, and I have to look back at my records, but I believe it was April 2016. And all of a sudden, one day he says, I want to introduce you to my girlfriend. And I say, okay, that's great. We would go out for dinner or go out for beers all the time. And, he said, I want to introduce you to my girlfriend. And I said, that's fine. Who's your girlfriend? And he introduces me to none other than Erica Thompson, who just happens to be what I think is now an Australian intelligence officer and the senior advisor of some nature to Alexander Downer. This is April 2016, maybe even March 2016, but let's say April 2016, but it was before my May 10th meeting with Downer. And I'm sitting there and, she's basically telling me, oh, why are you working for this pariah, Trump? Very hostile, very, very hostile. Christian himself was a little strange too. You should have been working with Ted Cruz, they were telling me. I mean, weird things like that. This guy is no good. And I just started to feel around that point that these people were keeping a tab on me, and I didn't understand quite why yet until things became even more strange after the Mifsud dirt. So then we go to April 26th. Mifsud tells me this claim. The claim obviously is that the Russians have Hillary's emails. And then I can't remember if I had organized my interview with the Times of London before Mifsud or after with Francis Elliott, where I basically tell the Times of London that David Cameron should apologize to Trump for calling him an idiot. And whatever he was saying about the Muslim ban. I can't remember exactly what the interview, but it made headways. I got in trouble a little bit with the campaign, but luckily Hope Hicks, I guess, saved my job, or Sam Clovis. One of these people saved my job because I guess some people in the campaign liked what I said, others didn't, so there was a bit of a scuffle. But anyway, I believe this interview is very important, actually, and the date of this interview is very important. I believe that the interview I gave to the Times of London was on May 2nd or May 3rd, so around a week, let's say, after Mifsud tells me this stuff, all of a sudden, two individuals from the U.S. Embassy in London reach out to me. And this is Terrence Dudley. So let me just preface this by saying, understand what's going on here. He's laying out the fact that after Mifsud came and told him about the emails that Russia has, then he was reached out to by two people at the U.S. Embassy in London. Presumably still Obama's guys, right? Yeah. Their names Terrence Dudley and Gregory Baker. That's how I remember it. It was right after the interview, and they start probing me. Hey, could we meet? I saw they were U.S. guys, our people. Why wouldn't I meet with them? These people. Whining and dining me as if I was some sort of star in their eyes. It was very bizarre. We're going to take you to this private club in London. We're going to, really spending hundreds of pounds on drinks and food and just trying to get to know who I am. My impression of these people was that they knew exactly who I was. They knew my background very well, and they were making remarks to make it seem ever more so that they knew that. One guy, Gregory Baker, would open remarks in the Greek language because he was, I guess, stationed in Greece and he knew my family were Greek or immigrant Greeks. And Terrence Dudley would say, oh, I was at Tufts University and I wrote my thesis on energy. So obviously they were trying to placate him to say, oh, well, I'm in energy too, and oh, I'm Greek too, right? They were trying to manipulate him. So it's like they knew all about my background before they came to me, and I believe Terrence Dudley was a Navy attaché. He might still actually be right now at the London Embassy, and Gregory Baker, I think, has left, and he's in the private sector somewhere in Wisconsin, probably in the defense industry. So these two guys were taking me out. They made it seem that they knew everything about me, and they were trying to ingratiate themselves within the campaign through me. I believe I have emails or communications with the two, possibly basically telling me we want to join the campaign. Who can we talk to? So think about this. This is how it was all structured and set up. Obama's guys at the London Embassy went and found Trump's campaign guy, Papadopoulos, and they tried to wine and dine him and tried to manipulate him so that they could get into the campaign. They would have been further plans that could have thrown wrenches into everything, just like how they used all these false predicates to go after President Trump. These were the people they were trying to embed in the campaign to go after President Trump even more. This was the insurance policy happening. Mark Meadows says emails from them, and Papadopoulos says from these two guys. And Meadows says saying they want to join the campaign, and Papadopoulos says basically yes, which is very bizarre. Keeping in touch with me on LinkedIn, email for months after that, sharing information. I think they shared some information from the State Department with me that they wanted me to pass along to the campaign. They were two active duty people at the U.S. Embassy in London. Unless they were completely rogue and nuts and just reaching out to me the way they did, I don't know. That's probably your job to figure out what they were really, what their motives were for meeting me. And these two guys then started to tell me, we need to introduce you to all of our people, to our people in Athens. So it says, then Gregory Baker and I believe, or Terrence, one of the two puts me in touch with the U.S. Army attaché in Athens to basically hear more about what I was doing regarding energy in Greece and Cyprus and what the U.S. policy should be in NATO. They had this picture of me as some sort of influential person in that part of the world. And they wanted to know my thoughts. And they wanted to know what the campaign was up to. It was the combination of both, what the campaign's up to and what you are up to, or what are you up to. So then they introduced me, of course, to their people in Athens, and I could get to that. But so after that, on May 10th, after I give the interview, so I remember I give this interview, I'm in London, and I begin to feel that I'm under watch. That's my impression. I would attend certain cafes and restaurants where I was living, and people I would just feel were watching me in London. I don't know if I was being paranoid or not, but let's just say I felt I was under some sort of surveillance. And a couple days, I believe after I met Terrence and Gregory, Erica Thompson reaches out to me again and says, hey, my boss Alexander Downer, he knows the world, it's good for you to meet him and you should come for drinks with us. And I said, of course. At that time, I'm like, wow, all these, very senior diplomats and people want to just meet this 28-year-old young aide who just joined the campaign, I think, or a month or so before. But why not? They could send it back to the campaign that I just met with the Australian diplomat. What am I going to tell you right now? What is what I remember telling special counsel directly to their face too. One, I felt like Alexander Downer first. I felt the meeting was completely controlled, that he was sent to meet me by some entity or some organization, and that he was recording or recorded my conversation with him. And what do I mean by recording my conversation? And basically it just goes on to say how he stuck a phone in his face, and that's how he knew he was being recorded. So this lays out everything, though. Do you guys see how this all relates? So George Papadopoulos was the point guy for Israel and Middle East Energy. So he was doing a lot of the contacts there. He was obviously an intelligence agent asset, and he was working on the campaign as an advisor. So what did they do? They set him up. Obama's guys at the embassy in London went out and then wined and dined this guy, introduced him to Erica Thompson, who then introduces him to Alexander Downer, which is where you get the Mifsud information being passed along. And George says he doesn't even know whether or not he said that the Russians had the emails to Alexander Downer. They could have just been setting it all up so that it looks like Alexander Downer, who is the former head of the Australian CIA, could have said anything, because they would take his word over some campaign advisor, low level, of the Trump campaign. So the intelligence agencies set Papadopoulos up. He was just a pawn being used through this. And this is how they pulled it off. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share that. I thought that was actually really worthwhile to get out there. So you guys let me know what you think. And there's no coincidence that I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu came on March 20th, right before, like last week. Prime Minister Netanyahu shows up, and then right after that, you see the release of this George Papadopoulos transcript. I think that there's a lot more going on there, so you guys are going to want to keep up with that. But that's going to be it. I have a few more things before we go. If you guys want to help out the channel, the best way to do is to come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and hit that like button if you guys want to see more of these videos. Also, don't forget to like and share these videos and put them on your social media, and don't forget to leave your thoughts, theories, and insights in the comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say about all of this. I want to hear what you think about what happened with George Papadopoulos. How did all this come to be? I think I'm onto something here, and this is something that we should be definitely paying attention to, about these two guys from the U.S. Embassy in London who obviously were working under the Obama administration. So I'd love to hear from you there. Also, a few other ways you can help out the channel, a few financial ways. There'll be a link in the description. There's Patreon, patreon.com. It's a crowdfunding website. I have it set up for monthly donations. You come here, click this button to become a patron. You can give as little as $1 a month. You're helping create content on this channel. Set it and forget it, and know you're helping a good cause here and get this information out there to as many people as we possibly can. And I always encourage everyone to check it out. I would not be able to do this without you guys. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. That helps out big time as well. Also, don't forget to come find me over here on Twitter at JustInformYou. That helps out the channel big time, and I really appreciate your support over here. And don't forget to come check out justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk, where you get links to all the Q stuff, links to different news websites, links to breaking news, and of course you get all of the videos right here, and you're going to want to go check that out. So, before we go, at the end of each episode, we do a segment called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And I'm going to keep it pretty simple on this one. I'm going to read out of the book of Proverbs, and there's this incredible verse I love, which talks about trusting in the Lord, and it's out of chapter 3. It's verses 1 through 4, and I'm just going to read this to you, and then we're going to talk about it for a minute. It says, "My son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commands. For they will bring you many days, a full life, and well-being. Never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Tie them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard in the sight of God and man." And it's so easy, and I love it because it makes my heart feel good. I hope it helps your hearts. I hope it helps you guys understand that the only thing we're asked to do by God is have loyalty and faithfulness and to be righteous, and to turn our lives over to God. And it may sound like a lot, but it really is the most important thing we can do. when you turn your life over to God and you write that love on the tablet of your heart in the sight of God and man, you will have high regard, as it says here. And it's not just about having high regard. It's about understanding that trusting in the Lord is the first step to our salvation. And if you're feeling weak in your faith and you're not sure, open up your heart, say a prayer, reach out to God. God's waiting for that prayer. He's waiting to hear from you. He's waiting for you. You have been saved. Your eternal salvation has already been bought and paid for through the blood of Jesus Christ, and you are forgiven, and you are loved, and you just have to open your heart up. And then once you open your heart up, one of the greatest gifts God gives us is the gift to spread that love into the world. And that's what I do. That's what I'm called to do as an evangelist, and I hope you guys do that on your own as well. But that's where I'm going to leave it. I want to say thank you for watching. Few things. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now's a great time to do it. Come here, click the big red subscribe button. Also hit that like button if you guys, the thumbs up button if you guys want to see more of this content. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.